Holy Spirit. Amen. Let us pray for peace. There are so many wars in the world, so many people who suffer because of war. Let us ask the grace of peace. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now in the hour of our death. Amen. Mary, seat of wisdom, pray for us. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. So today we begin to reflect on fallacies. The word fallacy comes from the Latin fallere, that means to deceive, to make, to induce others into error. So, in general, I will explain in general what is a fallacy, and after that we study two categories of fallacies. So, in general, it is an apparent syllogism. Apparently, it's a good syllogism, but if you scrutinize, you will find some error, something that makes the apparently valid, make it invalid. Fallacies, the appearance of truth, the appearance of validity. But you have to know the law of syllogism, and sometimes that is a mistake there. There is a mistake. Okay? So fallacy is a reasoning which appears to conclude, but in fact does not conclude. It has the appearance of a good syllogism, valid syllogism. But when you examine seriously, you will find some mistake, some error, and that makes it invalid. So in our daily life, we are inclined, for example, to make, no, never you do that, but I do that sometimes, rash judgment. We see something, immediately we are inclined to have a judgment. And that's called a rash judgment. But we have to reason to say, do I have proof for that, etc. So a rash judgment, it is a fallacy. I judge rapidly, I conclude, but in fact my conclusion is not a real conclusion because I did not seriously study the situation, the fact. Or it is the process of jumping too quickly to a conclusion. I go to a rectory. It is and that Sunday they have a good meal with wine, etc. Oh, I see priests. The diocesan priests, they eat very well. But it was the birthday of the pastor. So sometimes we are inclined to jump rapidly from one fact to a conclusion. We saw that before. You remember? We call that false induction. Remember? A, E, I, O. See, if I is true, can I go to A? No, because if O is true, can I go to E? No. So that, if I go from one fact or the other, that is a fallacy. Okay? It is the process of reaching a conclusion with no sound basis. So we have many kinds of fallacies. If you have the dictionary of Mr. William Rees, Dictionary of Philosophy and Religion, he gives you many examples of fallacies. Interesting. With many examples of fallacies. If you look at another dictionary, other example, if you go on the computer, Google, write fallacies, and they will give pages and pages of fallacies. So there are many, many fallacies. Sister Spangler showed someone, we cannot explain everyone, shows someone, and it is the one I will see with you. Okay? For example, here in the rectangle, we start from a fact. In fact, if we start from Q, if P, then Q. We start from Q and we go directly to affirm P. That is I will say almost a universal mistake. We see the situation and we conclude it is that. And when I was young, I was young. I think, in French, There is two verbs to express that. In English, there is only one, was. Was, the imperfect means that it's never finished. That continue. In French, we say, j'étais, I was, I continue, but je fus is finished. I'm no more young. But in English, we don't have that. I can say, I was young, that means I continue to be young. I think English are more positive than French and Latin. Because in Latin, in French, in Greek, we separate what is completely terminated, finished, terminated, no? We say perfect, past, and what is imperfect past, that means I continue. And that, when you study the Bible, you will see that also in the Gospel. And the imperfect in Greek means the continuation. So when you have the imperfect, Jesus was doing that, that means he continued to do that. It was not only at that time, he did that many times. You know? It's important to understand the genius of each language. So here we have, I was young, and I was at school. I came back from school, and I received at Christmas a Monopoly. You know what is a Monopoly? No. The game. Monopoly. Capitalistic game. You will learn very young to the love of money. So I arrived in my house. My money was everywhere in the house. So my little sister, the sixth one, took my box of Monopoly, and she was so happy to put my dollar everywhere. So when I arrived, I saw all that. I said, no, it's not my grandmother, not my grandfather. Probably my little sister. In fact, she was very happy. So I start from Q to conclude P. That was not difficult, but maybe sometimes it's more difficult. And most of the time, we cannot conclude from Q to P. And remember the proof of the existence of God. Huh? It's not because we see something beautiful that we can say directly God did that. We have to reason to take all the possibilities. Okay? So I go to the text here. A fact. The box of candies is empty. Bon, le problème, who ate my candies? Huh? Okay? I received candies at Christmas. I put that on in my closet for me, huh? And so I have no more candy. Oh. So my answer is, or my young sister did that. But also, you know, my grandmother liked candies. So who did that? I have to make an inquiry. I cannot conclude directly. You know? Another example. Huh? Well, you go to the mailbox, huh? And you see letters. A letter. What kind of letter? My answer is, it is a bill. Huh? I am waiting every day for a bill from Middlesex Hospital. He's not coming. I know he will come, I'm sure. So, because I saw the letter with the name of the doctor, doctor, etc., I say, that is a bill from the doctor. No, you open it, it's not a bill, it is he recall you to come to a visit for such a day, you know. So many times we judge, but we don't have the proof of that, huh? And in fact, we receive a call. Oh no, who is calling me? Is that guy one of the ones? And, oh no, it's your best friend. You know, we are inclined, naturally inclined to pass from Q to P, to make false and induction. Okay? So fallacies are appearance of truth, but fallacies lead to deception. In fact, we don't attain the truth, but we are. In the past, there was people specialized in that. We call sophists. The sophists, or in that column of philosophy, is called sophism. They try to prove the wisdom according to what the money you give them. It's interesting to think today we have that kind of sophism also. We call Lawyer. Because a lawyer, for example, even if you have a criminal, you have the right to be defended, to have someone to take your defense. And the attorney defending you, not you, but the criminal, he asked, did you kill? Yes, I killed. Okay, I will prove that you did not kill. It's a job. He will try to prove that he did not kill. A good example of that is Joe Simpson. The first trial he won, but the second trial he lost. He lost. If you have a good lawyer, a lawyer, a good lawyer, and then you can. In the past, there was the same thing. We call them sophism. Okay, so you have two kinds of fallacies. Some fallacies are willed, are intentional. They are provoked. We pay for that. Others are accidental, unintentional. And those fallacies that are unintentional, we call that paralogism. Outside of the track. The moon, para, outside. Logism. Paralogism. That means, in fact, they have the appearance of a syllogism, but they are not logical. Okay? So, intentional, unintentional. Those who are provoked will systematically to attain some goal. For example, many advertising, you will see that many advertising are fallacies. And those who do that involuntary. You remember? No, it's not this class, in the other class. I will come back on that. Okay. Forget for the moment. Okay, second page. So now, what is the cause of sophism? Well, the most fertile ground for fallism is first starting from opinion. Many people judge a fact not according to natural criterion, but according to the opinion. If the majority think like that, therefore I will go in that direction. It seems to be generally accepted, but in fact are not. And the general opinion, but in fact you have some general opinion, apparently they are not real opinion. You have a good example of that in the Canadian election that happened last week. And there are three parties. You have the conservative, the neo-democrat that are socialists, and you have liberal. And the liberal were the third party, third one. Or maybe they will become the second, but with the minority. In fact, they won with a total absolute majority. So the opinion expressed through polls, but not expressing really the reality of the people. I will come back on that. We will speak about that kind of syllogism. So the opinion, and that is very powerful. If you teach in high school, the opinion is excessively important. We must be conform to the general opinion. Okay? Secondly, reasoning which seems to follow a valid reasoning but does not. We think correctly, but in fact we have some non-conformity to the rule of a syllogism. You remember we have 8 rules. Sometimes we miss one of the 8 rules. In the likeness, in this likeness, there is the possibility of deception, the appearance. And sophists work on that. They try to convince you through a beautiful speech, and they help you to swallow what is not true. Another reason, it is they taught how to produce apparent wisdom to the sake of profit. For selfish motives. I have interest to affirm that. So I will try to affirm what is in my interest. not what is in the common good or the truth, but my own interest. So my own interest can change, can distort my reasoning. Plain laziness, 5, plain laziness. Or we are lazy, and we don't reflect sufficiently. You write a text and you don't reread the text to correct, to see if that text expresses really your thought. And finally, I add something, prejudices. Prejudices. Very, very, very powerful. How many people they judge, they reason according to their prejudices? You know what the prejudices are? It's to judge about someone before the fact, because you have already the answer. My opinion, my judgment is formed before judging. And we see that, for example, in racism. Racism is that easy. If there is a crime and there is a white man and a color man, Hispano, or immediately people will say, it's not a white man, it's the other. You know, that is racism. That is a prejudice. For example, how many prejudices Protestants had against Catholic when the Catholic came to the United States at the end of the 18th century?
All of them.
A lot of prejudices. A lot of prejudices. That means they want to conquer the world, they want to, etc. All those prejudices. Of course, they falsify my judgment. My judgment is not correct because I have to prove something. I have some judgment already acquired through my education, for example. Many prejudices come from our education, formation. Okay, now page 120. So what is the origin of sophism? So we have two categories of sophism. Two categories, a division. So we have sophism of word, dependent of language. Sophism dependent on language. Because we don't speak correctly the language, or we don't understand well, or we don't write well. Even people, native people cannot write well. Equivocity in language. And the second is sophism independent of language. They are not language. They are independent. They are willed. Those who are willed, and they are provoked by the one who used them. Okay? So let us begin by the fallacies dependent on language. That means paralogism. Remember that? Paralogism. We make mistake involuntarily. We don't will to do the mistake, but we do a mistake in such a way that what we say, what we affirm, does not correspond to the reality. We have fallacies of indiction. Diction, in speech. Diction comes from the verb Latin, dico, dicere, to say, to say. So in diction is to say, in saying, in affirming. So and shifting sense. And the other is we use a sense for the first middle term, but we switch to another sense. In fact, the majority of puns in every language are based on that. And the puns make a joke. Maybe joke when we start from one meaning and we go to the other meaning. And that makes people laugh because they say some incongruity. It is not correct, and that makes people laugh. You know what is a pun? A kind of joke on words, and we use every language has that. I have pun in French. I cannot translate that in English. Impossible. And puns in English are impossible to be translated in French, because it is proper to the genius of the language. Huh? But every language, they have that. And comedian, you know, comedian, many times they make fun on that. Huh? The shifting of meaning. So they pass from one meaning and they go to the other meaning of the same word. For example, the middle term pass from one sense to another sense. One meaning to another meaning. Okay? So on one word, what is the artificial sign? A word is an artificial sign. Does duty for quite diverse things at times. Same word can have many meanings. If you go to Merriam-Webster, many times I go to Merriam-Webster, and I'm surprised to see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 meanings for the same word. So if you speak English and you want to be understood by people, you must know all those meanings. Otherwise, you will use one and the other will not understand. I told you the story of the Canadian sister going to Peru. Well, Canadian sister go as a missionary to Peru, and she arrived early in the morning, and they took the sister to the monastery, and of course she did not eat from a long time. Huh? So she said, are you hungry? She said, oh, I don't tengo hombres. Tengo hombres. Hombres means man. Hombre means hunger, you know. Hombre. Hombres. Hombre, man. Hombres, men. I have many men. Oh, I told the sister, don't say that. She explained to the sister that tengo hombres means, I know I have many men, very fast. So, and she answered, estoy embarazada. Well, in French, embarrassed, in English, but in Spanish means pregnant. So she did that very fast. You know? So so imagine we laugh. Why we laugh? Because we see the shifting of meaning. In fact, jokes are based on that. The meaning has one meaning, but in another language has another meaning. Or in the same language, the same word has two meanings, depending on the context. Okay. Okay. So the equivocal usage, of words set the stage for fallacious reasoning. In fact, all that, what is it? Is equivocation. We use one word, but the word has two meanings. So that is equivocation. Okay. I read the text here. Since it opens the way for the presence of four terms. Well, when you have middle term predicate, subject middle term, okay, you remember that the middle term must have the same meaning. But if you shift meaning, the meaning is changing, I have one here and two here. So I have four terms. And I must have only invalid. Is that valid? Because the middle term, even if it is exactly the same word, the middle term must stand for the same thing. It must have the same meaning. So, I'm sure in every language, Spanish, Vietnamese, French, English, is the cause of funny joke. People laugh because of that. Okay? I go now to the next page. I continue. So the four causes of fallacies. It is in fact the misuse of a word. And we have here four cases. First, the double meaning of word. Ambiguity of the grammatical construction. So we have that in every language. In every language we have word, and if it is used as a verb, as a noun, etc. So ambiguity. Secondly, a misleading combination or division of word. We call that amphibology. Dependent of you use the word in one dimension or the other dimension. Amphibology. Double meaning. Double amphi means two in Greek. Two. A misleading placement of accentuation. Accent. We see that. The accent can change the meaning of the word, even in English. And finally, a misuse of the form of inflection. So then we don't say the word exactly as we should say it. We say, because we don't pronounce correctly, we give a new meaning. Okay, let's just see one by one. First, ambiguity. It is a fallacy resulting from two diverse and intended meaning of a word or phrase used in puns and advertisement. It can be accidental. Most of the time it is willed. For example, did you hear about the case of whiskey? It is the last case in court. You know what is a case of whiskey? A box with bottle. With the case in court, it is what the judge is studying a situation and the trial, you know. So here they base a joke on the word case in the time of prohibition. Time of prohibition. Since the janitor did not fire the furnace, I intend to fire him. You understand, huh? Fire the furnace, to put fire to the furnace, make a furnace function, to heat the house. Because you did not do that, I will fire you. So to fire is to kick out a man from his job. Okay, that is a play on. So when it is accidental, when that kind of ambiguity is accidental, we call that lapsus linguae. Slip of tongue in English. Slip of tongue. Word for word, slip of tongue. You remember those who are in philosophy of man with me, the student who went to the funeral home because his teacher, mathematics teacher, died. And that student detested mathematics. It was his nightmare. And the teacher died, and of course, as a polite student, he went to offer his condolences to the widow. And he said to the widow, "Congratulations," instead of saying condolences. So that means we call that the lapsus linguae. That is not intentional. But someone who's intentional in the advertising, I listened to that for maybe 30 years. For the rest of your life. You remember that? That advertising? The women chant that for the rest of your life. For the rest. The rest in English has two meanings. First and second. You know, they announce a good product, and that is very good. So if you lose that product, you will be quiet. You will rest. You will rest. You will be quiet. You take a rest. But also, it is good for the rest of your life, like for all the rest of your life. You know what is the rest of your life? If you are 13, you have 17 years more. That is the rest of your life. So the pun here, equivocal, is on the word rest. So you can interpret the advertising in the two meanings. To be quiet, enough, or you will use that for the rest of your life. That means you will always use that product. And that is very astute. The person who wrote that advertising is very, very astute. Very intelligent. Because he used a word, and that word can be interpreted positively on both sides. It is so good. You will have a so good rest now that you will use that product for the rest of your life. Very, very good advertising. Of course, I don't say it is true, but it is well presented. Okay? That is based on ambiguity. And the puns, we saw that, are based on ambiguity. And that makes people laugh. Okay? Now, the second, amphibology. Amphibology means logi, meaning, logos, double meaning. Amphibology means double meaning. It is also a case of equivocation. Equivocation. Double meaning, amphibology. A sentence susceptible of more than one interpretation. So it is a fallacy resulting from diverse and unintended meaning caused by grammatical construction. It is the result of a dangling, a suspending, and misplaced modifier of the pronouns with unclear antecedent. When you are a teacher and you correct the paper of your student one day, I don't speak about you, I speak about when you are the 7th grade, 6th grade, 9th grade, you have many times, many equivocals. The child around, right? And sometimes we can interpret the thing in two meanings, okay? So, example here. Paul likes ice cream better than his wife. Two meanings here. He likes ice cream better than his wife likes ice cream. Probably is the first meaning. I like ice cream better than my wife likes ice cream. But when he says that, he loves most, he is in love with Dairy Queen more than with his wife. So the same sentence has two meanings. Okay? The second, lust. The advertising of the paper, it is written lust. One umbrella with an old man with a carved ivory head.
True.
It is the man of the umbrella who has an ivory head.
Yes.
It can be, the way it is written, it can be the umbrella, it can be also the man. Probably the man has no hair at all, it's like an ivory. So that is ambiguous. The third, James told Fred that he would become a great musician. Who is he? It is James or Fred. It can be both. So we don't know. It is ambiguous. Okay. Mary saw a hat in the window which she liked. What does she like? The window or the hat in the window? She can like the window because sometimes windows are beautiful. Christmas Day, you know, people go on a great store and they admire the window. Beautiful. But she admires also the hat in the window. So what is, it's not clear here. Huh? Another, in Latin, Marcum Victorum Titum. I have to explain that because for the majority among you, that's no meaning. You know, in Latin, we call the infinitive preposition. For example, here I say that Marcus will triumph over Titus. Well, it was a fight between gladiators, you know? Gladiator. Yeah. You know, in the Roman time, they fought and they were specialized to fight. And one was the victorious, the victor, and the other was to be killed. If the emperor did that, he was saved. If the emperor did that, he was to be killed. Okay? So, before the combat, before the competition, the friend of Marcus went to a sorcerer, a teller, and he said, he he said, you know, our friend Marcus will fight against Titus. And we won't be sure. If we invest our money on Marcus, we must be sure that Marcus will win. So there is a jar here with 2 sticks. And on each one it is written Marcum Victorum Titum or Titum Victorum Marcum. Okay. So he implored the gods. Finally, take a stick. And it is written Marcum Victorum Titum. Okay, Marcum Victorum. Let us put the money on Marcus. The friend of Titus, go to the same sorcerer and they say, hey, we want to put money on Titus, but before we must be sure he will win. Blah, 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 blah. Take a stick, Titum Victorum Marcum. Oh, wonderful. Titum will be the victorious. Of course, the fight happened, and one is killed. Suppose Titus is killed. What will happen to the friend of Titus, or Titus? They will go to the sorcerer. He will say, you promised that we will win. No. The gods did not promise that. The God said, Marcum or Titum Victorum Marcum or Marcum Victorum Titum. The 2 sentences mean exactly the same thing in Latin. You know Latin? I taught Latin for about 10 years. I must say it's not a clear language, very, very ambiguous. So ambiguous that Pius XII asked scholar to correct the Vulgata. And now we have a neo-Vulgata. Very interesting. A few times ago I was on my computer and I looked at the Biblia Clerus. I don't know if you know that site. It is one of the best sites to study the Holy Scripture. It is free. You write Biblia Clerus on your Google, and you have the Bible in Hebrew, the Bible in Greek, the Bible in Neo-Vulgata, the Vulgata of Saint Jerome, the Neo-Vulgata of Pius XII, and you have French, English, German, the language you want. Okay? It's a marvel. So I took a certain time to compare the Neo-Vulgata with the Old Vulgata. In fact, there was a lot of imprecision. You know, in fact, Saint Jerome was not a grammarian. He was a translator for the Vulgus. Vulgus means the people. Because in Rome at that time, who spoke Latin? The populo, the people. Who went to Athens to study? The nobility. Caesar. All those guys, they went to study in Greek. In which language was written the gospel? Greek. In Greek. Not in Latin. In Greek. So Saint Jerome translated that. And that was a lot of... For example, Saint Jerome did not use punctuation because at that time there was no punctuation. So now we use punctuation, and when we use punctuation, we change the meaning. You go to Rome, you see the ark of Constantine, or Constantine, and there is a text here. You read the text, they are all in capital letter without any punctuation. So that is, you can translate in many different possibilities. So here, I can say, because it is, we call it an infinitive, the subject is accusative, the complement is accusative, and the verb is accusative. You cannot distinguish what is the subject, what is the verb. So the sorcerer was sure to tell the truth, because he was sure that either Marcus or either Titus will be the victorious. But in fact, only one. That is an example of ambiguity. It's taken from Latin. I thought it's difficult because there is no article in Latin. In Greek, it's very precise. They have article. But in Latin, there is no article. At that time, there was no punctuation. Okay? So now I give you another. Okay. So you have the example here, a fallacy of equivocation. Or you can read that. Huh? For example, the medicine the doctor gave me made me eye smart. The medicine the doctor gave me made my eye smart. So, you know, you have my eye smart will make me smart. So I needed to be smart, so I took medication. Okay. So equivocal. And after, look at next page, you have the church bulletin bloopers.
That's funny.
Yes, it's very good. And that is true. They are taken from real facts. Lady Bible studies will be held Thursday morning at 10. All ladies are invited to lunch in the fellowship hall after the BS is done. So I would ask sister to ask that from, I would not say that in France. The pastor will appreciate it if the ladies of the congregation will lend in their electric girdles for the pancakes breakfast. So there was a mistake here. It's a griddle. Well, I asked that to Loretta, she will explain that. No, but you know, that's the funny is, okay, the pastor will preach his farewell message, last message, after which the choir will sing, break forth into joy. We are so happy. Remember in prayer the many who are sick of our church and our community. So two meaning. In fact, the many who are sick in our church, or those who are sick of our church. I am sick of. But you are not sick of logic. No. You can be sick of the teacher. Okay. The 8th graders will be presenting Shakespeare's Hamlet in the church basement Friday at 7 p.m. The congregation is invited to attend this tragedy. Or two meaning, the tragedy is the piece of the play of Shakespeare, but also it can be a fiasco, a complete tragedy. Thursday night, potluck supper. Prayer and medication to follow. Meditation. Meditation, but they wrote medication. Of course, after the potluck, maybe sometimes it's useful to take some pills to digest. A meal supper would be held on Tuesday evening in the church hall. Music will follow. So I think there's the necessity to explain music. You know, that makes me to think about, I was in Cameroon with Celestine a long time, 20 years. And you know what was the best? They told me, Father, the best meal we like is beans. Because they prepare beans in molasses, like we do in England and in Canada. In molasses they are like. And they call that the musical candies. The musical candies. This is very good, more musical candies. A very good way to express the cause and the effect at the same time. Okay. Weight Watchers will meet at 7 p.m. at the First Presbyterian Church. Please use that double door. I look at nobody in the class. Tuesday at 4 p.m. there will be an ice cream social. All it is, that is ambiguous. Huh? So, if you don't understand, ask Loretta. The Lutheran men's group will meet at 6 p.m. Steak, mashed potatoes, green beans, bread and dessert will be served for a nominal fee. A nominal fee. So, if in fact in nominal, What is the word we should read right here?
Fee.
Huh?
Fee.
Fee. Fee. Huh? Fee, not feel, fee. No, without L. But if you put L, you change the meaning. Okay. Don't let worry kill you. Let the church help you to kill or to overcome your worriness. This evening, Easter Sunday, we will ask Mrs. Lewis to come forward and lay an egg on the altar. That reminds me of a story, a real story. The first Mass I said in the bush in Cameroon. The first Mass, I remember that. I was up to say the Mass in the bush, in the parish in the bush. So, and there was the church was no glasses, only a bar. So it is so warm, so, and not only the air passed through, but the chicken also, the ends passed through. And there was I was in the middle of the little church, and there was a hen on the window. So I began to preach. Imagine the hen began to fly, pass over me, I have to bend down, and she went behind the altar and she put an egg. So we have to be in mission to see those things. You may not believe that is true. I said to the people, you know, it is the Holy Spirit descending. It was very funny. But that is natural. Natural. Okay. Like when they have the correction, they put money, they put eggs, and they bring and living, not that living, because there is no refrigerator at the altar. You understand now why we wash our hands after the offering, the procession of offering? Yes, it's exactly the reason. The reason it is when you collect money, you receive eggs, you receive bananas, vegetables. It's true, during the collection. So the people, sometimes the priest does not a lot of money, but you have what you need to eat. But when you receive that, now you have to wash your hands. So the reason of the washing of hands is, the origin is there. Because the priest receive gifts, not only money, even money is not, it's a little bit dirty, both sides, morally and materially. and the chicken and all that, you know. And sometimes during the Mass, when the cup is sinking during the Mass, that is another, it's not the United States. Okay, I go to next one. Thursday at 5 p.m. there will be a meeting of the Little Mothers Club. All wishing to become little mothers, please see the minister in his study. Very ambiguous. Irving Benson and Jessie Carter were married on October 24 in the church. So ends a friendship that began in their school days. So now they are married, they have no more friends. Bertha Belch. Bon, Belch is the meaning of birth. You know what is to birth? To era. Okay. A missionary from Africa will be speaking tonight at Calvary Memorial Church in Racine. Come tonight and hear Bertha Belch all the way from Africa. So Belch is ambiguous, you know, in his family name, but it's also to burp. The ladies of the church have cast off clothing after every kind. And they may be seen in the church. Well, here, as the daughter said, okay, if you don't understand, ask Grace can explain that, and Loretta. Okay. Announcement in the church bulletin for a national prayer or fasting conference. The cost for attending the fasting and prayer conference include meals. So it's not logical. Miss Charlene Mason sang, "I will not pass this way again," giving obvious pleasure to the congregation. In fact, I will stop. I will stop. Some people are appealing. Next Sunday is the family A ride and bonfire at the Fowlers. Bring your own hot dogs and guns. Friends are welcome. Everyone come for a fun time. In here, it's not gun, it is bun. Bun.
I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, although in some parts of the country.
Yes, I know. Some During the absence of our pastor, we enjoy the rare privilege of hearing a good sermon when GF stops supply our pulpit. That is not very good for the pastor. The church will host an evening of fine dining, superb interment, and gracious hostility. What is the word here? Hospitality. Hospitality. Okay. This evening at 7 p.m. there will be a hymn sing in the park across from the church. Bring a blanket and come to prepare to sing. Prepare to sing. Probably the pastor did not check the advertisement. I understand there will be a lot of people. Ladies, don't forget the rummage sale. Rummage sale, it's not every old thing. Huh? It's a chance to get rid of those things not worth keeping around the house. Don't forget your husband. So after that, how we can say that logic is boring? Okay, that is. Another kind is composition. Huh? It is true only in a separated way. It is a fallacy resulting from taking something in combined sense, which is true only in a separated sense. One, in fact, there is two meanings. One is in potency, the other is in act. Example. The sophist may say that the water is both hot and cold, simply because it is potentially hot and actually cold. John chats with me and reads the paper. Therefore, John is able to talk and not talk. Because when he reads, he's not talking. So that is, it is true separately, not together. Okay? These flowers reach full bloom and die off. Therefore, these flowers are both blooming and dying. No, they are blooming in one aspect, and after another aspect, they are dying, not at the same time. In fact, here we don't respect the principle of contradiction. Some seminarians have period of prayer and study. Therefore, they can both pray and study at the same time. And I agree with that. Because to study is a prayer. And your desk is your altar. And your cross is your chair. And I say to my students, put glue in your chair. Glue is the condition to study well. The glue of the will that fixes you to your seat. Because it's funny, when we begin to study, we have hands in our legs. We need to move. Someone, they cannot stay a long time. Yes, brother.
What's the example? Which one is the potency and which one is in
Each example is that. Then, for example, you take the second. John chats and talk with me and read the paper. Now, either is actually talking and potentially reading the paper, or is potentially chatting and actually reading the paper. We can have both actually. If one is actual, the other is potential. But they cannot be actual at the same time. Okay? Good question, very good. Now finally, the last is the division. True only as a unit. They cannot be true separately. It is a fallacy resulting from taking something as in a divided sense, which is meant to be taken as a unit. The sophists ignore the whole, which is composed of various parts. Instead, he emphasizes, he insists on the part which that is given whole. Well, here you have 5 examples. The number 9 is not different from 7. 4, because it is 7 with a little more. A little more, no? It is, separately it's true that 9 is 7 plus a little more, but we cannot say that 9 is 7 plus a little more. Of course, 9 is 7 plus 2. 2 is a little more. No. We say here it is true only, we insist on one part and we neglect the other part. We insist on 7, but the rest is not important. Okay? The greater is equal. The greater is equal. You know, the greater is equal. That is contradictory to say that. Why? Because it is that amount and more beside. So it is the same amount, equal, plus beside. For example, the greater, we have 2 things. We have a tall man and a little man here. So the greater is this amount plus another thing. In fact, the greater is not that. It is, if we want, we have to take both together. If I say 9 is 7 plus a little bit 2, I cannot say 9 is 7. 9 is not, I take only a part of the affirmation. No, 9 cannot be only a part. 9 must be the totality of the affirmation, not only the part of the affirmation. I continue. The union of husband and wife is both odd and even. For the union is made of 2 in one flesh. It is the union is 2 in one flesh. The union of 2 persons are not 2 plus 1. They are either 2 or 1 together in one, but they are not both at the same time. A union, it is 2 in 1. A union is 2 in 1. Okay? So when we speak about that union of husband and wife, we have to if we insist on one thing, the union, that means 2 equal 2, or if we insist on the fact they are 1, but the 2 here can be interpreted not the same way as here. I can say, okay, 2 is 2 plus 1. No, 2 is 2. Or if I say 2 is 1, the 1 here includes the 2. In fact, I am true only on one part of the section. The best example will come after here. Water. No. Water, H2O, is made with 2 very light substances, hydrogen and oxygen. Okay, so hydrogen and oxygen. Okay, bon, 2. So that is very light. The lightest substance on Earth is hydrogen. And oxygen is not very heavy. So water is light. Water is light because its components are light. You understand? I cannot accept that because, you know, it is true that water is made with 2 gas, but water is not the same way as the 2 components. Water is heavy. The gas is not so heavy. You know? Okay, so water is not, I cannot say water is hydrogen. I cannot say water is oxygen. Water is both together. Okay, it's both together. 5, well, that is easy to understand. 5 equals 3 plus 2. Therefore, 5 equals 3 and 5 equals 2.
Okay.
No.
it is true that 5 equals 3 plus 2, but I cannot say the equality is here and equality is here. So what is, to have the truth, I must have the whole and not only the part. Here we say division. A fallacy, where the meaning must be taken in the whole, not in the part. I cannot say water is only hydrogen, or water is only oxygen. I cannot say 5 is only 3, 5 is only 2. You know? It's the same. For example, if I say man is a body and soul. Can I say man is a body?
No.
Can I say man is a soul?
No.
No. I must say man is body and soul together. So I cannot say the truth if I divide the affirmation here. Finally, accentuation or punctuation. Example. Send me a man who reads. Send me a man who reads. So you put the punctuation, you change the meaning. The invalid, if you go to William Webster, is the sick person, or the case. Invalid case was brought in court. The invalid, having no force in a case was brought in court. So you have invalid sickness and perfection, and invalid not value. So the accent can change. That is very difficult for foreigner. I must confess, as a foreigner, I don't make the distinction. But I'm sure an American who knows English will do the distinction. You know? In fact, in French, we have no accent. The accent is only at the end of the sentence. So we said all the words the same tonality. And at the end, we make an accent. According to the accent, we say it is interrogation or negation, etc. For example, I say, my mother did very good pie. In French, we say, ma mère, fille, a fait de bonne tarte. The bonne tarte, at the end, the accent. We don't say papa et mama. No. But in Spanish, papa and ma. You know. In English, mother, father. No. But in French, we say father, mother. That is the French way to start. So each language has a way to explain. Yeah. In Africa, for example, the bishop of Yaoundé, he was Bishop Zoa. Zoa. He told us that depending if we say Zoa or Zoa, you have two meanings. In fact, the meaning of his language was elephant. So the bishop, elephant. He was not too big. Bishop, elephant. So in many languages. So when I said the mass in the native language there, I'm sure sometimes I did not have the right accent. People smile. They smile, but they understand. They understand, but they smile because they know I don't know their language perfectly. I cannot use the right accent. Somebody told me recently, you have a terrible accent, but we understand you. I'm not sure it was a compliment. I want to, when I study English, I studied English at the age of 10, but I did not practice. When I began to practice, I went to Washington. I studied with Berlitz, and I went to the restaurant with my sister and my nephew, and the waitress asked me, are you from Scotland? I said, no. So I said that to my companion, father who was with me. I said, it's not a compliment. Not a compliment, it's not a congratulation. Okay, Tylenol is the one more pediatricians give their own children. Tylenol is the one pediatricians give their own children. You know, we put a dot, we check the meaning. And unfortunately, I regret I did not copy what I wrote in the new Vulgata in comparison with the old Vulgata, because it was exactly that. The punctuation changed the meaning of the sentence. So, okay. Brush regularly with Colgate to reduce New cavity, stop, bad breath through. Brush regularly with Colgate to reduce new cavity. Stop, bad breath through, you know. So we can change the meaning if we change the punctuation. And finally, we have the shifting of sense, or form of expression. If you want from the meaning of the middle term 1 to the meaning of the middle term 2. So the middle term has two meanings. But it is exactly the same spelling, the same orthograph, but not the same meaning. So it is a kind of evocation, especially in regard with the middle term. It is a fallacy resulting from the expression of two different things in the same word form. So you have a word form, a term, and that term can have 1, 2, or sometimes 3 different meanings. For example, bark, bark, and bark. You know? Bark, the tree, the verb of the tree. Bark to the language of your precious dog. Woof, 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 bark. And bark, a little boat on the river. You know? 3 meanings, the same word. So, for example, the cook smells, that's the action of smelling, the soup, and the soup smells good. The word smell has 2 meanings. I can smell, and the soup smells good. Okay? The sophist is able to deceive by means of the word term, because different categories of things, substance, quality, action, you remember that, substance, quality, are frequently expressed by the same word form. So the same word can be an adjective or can be a verb sometimes. Okay? It snows, an example, it snows. It snows. And you have the snow. It snows a lot of snow. It snows a lot of snow. So it snows is to snow, the verb to snow, and the snow. And the verb snow, the verb snow. I gave you, maybe, I don't remember if I gave you a series of equivocal like that in logic.
Yeah.
You have that, pages of that, pages of that. Imagine to speak a perfect English, you must master that. So you have, even for American, you have to make, even for French, when I read French, sometimes I have new words. Oh, I didn't know the meaning, that a word has another meaning, very specialized. Okay? Okay. Advertisement, for example. Lion tamer, the one who tames, who domesticates the lion. Once tamer lion. Tamer is a quality. A lion able to tame. The man's goodness shines out even when he shines shoes. So the word, they play on the word shine, 2 meanings. Shines and to shine. The sun is sunny, and shining, shine, and I shine my shoe. Okay. Time is passing swiftly every day, while the student is not passing his course. All the time the wind was blowing on, the policeman was blowing his whistle. So blowing, blowing. As the years begin to decline, a man begins to decline everything. So decline and decline. So here the gardener is flourishing his hoe. Flourishing is means the brandishing his hoe. His hoe. And the flourishing, at the flourishing rose. So the word flourish has 2 meanings. Most of the time, when we learn the language, we learn 1 meaning. And sometimes we don't know there is another meaning. Okay? I give you another one. I go to Poland to polish my polish. And today is the feast of Poland. It's a good example. Today is the feast of Poland. I go to Poland to polish my fish, my polish. The name to polish my polish. Okay? So here we call the metaphor. The metaphor is that kind of presentation. We play on metaphor. He was as hungry as a horse. So he ate a bucket of oats. So we compare the man who is hungry to a horse. So when we ate a bucket. We don't say he ate a bowl of soup, a bucket of soup. Okay. So I will ask you, I have 3 minutes now, to prepare a question for your last examination. Well, that question is, we are studying fallacy today and next class. And I give you 10% of the last class to find a fallacy. Fallacy in any advertising. Fallacy in a text in a newspaper, for example, in a speech of a politician, or in an advertising in a television or on a magazine. You find one. So first, what you do, find. Every year I give that, I must say it is a success. It's not always a success when I ask because of, but here is a success. Secondly, what kind of fallacy is it? So you take a text, don't invent it, I want the reference. If you can have the copy, the photocopy of the magazine, you will give me the photocopy. Or it is in the newspaper, you can cut it and paste that on your paper. What kind of fallacy? That is not long, that's like one line. And finally, the third question, why it is a fallacy? Why it is a fallacy? What the reason you can call that a fallacy? It's interesting. So watch television, watch the newspaper. I hope I will not have the same fallacy. I will try to have many fallacies. Each one find is fallacy. It can be in the speech of a politician, etc. So it can be in a newspaper. It can be many times. It is advertising. No, don't use the advertising I gave you before for the rest of your life. Don't use that. And if you can have the original text, if it is in the newspaper, don't cut the book in the library. But you can photocopy. Photocopy the source of your, what is your fallacy, can be in a magazine. So you take the page, you photocopy, and you see what that advertising is a fallacy. If you speak about television, indicate me what program, what channel, and what company announced that product, and prove me that is a fallacy, what kind of fallacy. It's not difficult. I'm sure you will enjoy that.